Hey everyone, this is the last little instructional video for the coding and analysis portion or process that we're moving into. This one is kind of just tips, tricks, things to remember while coding. A lot of these are things that we talked about in our coding session. When was it? Sometime last week, I'm forgetting the day. And they really helped me. I'm new to this. This is the first time I'll be doing this, so I was looking for things that could help me. Yeah, just pointers that I could keep in my head that would help me throughout the process. So those are the ones I'm going to be talking about. There's only 4 things that I have, so it should be a pretty short video. The first is to use colors. Yeah, that'll just make the coding easier. It'll make it a lot more like visibly visual. So you'll be able to kind of look and say, oh, you know, like this code, I circled all the things in blue, you know, something like that. Yeah, so we all used colors when we coded with Karen and Marilu. When we did like a little coding practice, we used a bunch of different markers, and you can use color wherever you're coding. So you can use colored pencils, you can use crayons, you can use sticky notes. Even if you're coding online, you can highlight different colors or make the text different colors. But yeah, that helped a lot, especially because again, when you overview it and you kind of see, you know, like I highlighted sections about inequality or inequity pink throughout all of the answers, then you'll be able to rapidly tell where, you know, people talked about inequity in the answers. Yeah, the next point kind of relates to that, which is just having a system might help, and that'll be different for everybody. Everybody will have their own system depending on how you organize yourself and what things help you. For some people, like maybe it's shapes. For some people, it's color. For other people, it might be like, you know, someone might do the coding process one way, and then someone else might do it, you know, back that same way but backwards, and that might help. Just for an example, when we did a little bit of coding practice with Marilu and Karen, I remember Karen's system was, you know, like putting things all around the passage in the margins and having arrows and things like that. And then for me, that stresses me out a little bit just because I get confused when I see a lot of things on the margins. So my coding system looked a little bit different, where I was color coding, right? So if I saw the word inequity, again, just using that example, I would underline it blue, and then I would put inequity in blue, and I knew that anything that I saw related to inequity, I would put blue. But I did all of this underneath the passage. So just having a system. So for example, in that difference, there's a difference between Karen's system being, you know, working directly on the passage, and then my system being kind of taking notes as I go through on a separate sheet of paper next to the passage, stuff like that. So yeah, don't be excited to create your own system. You know, like if you are unsure about, if you're coding and feel like you're not doing it in a way that fits you and you want to like ask other people how they're doing it, you know, you can like take other people's tips and kind of make your own little process of coding. The third point is to keep track of the passages that go with the notes you're taking. So if we're gonna code on by hand, we're gonna have a booklet where you'll have, for example, question 1, and then you'll have every single answer to question 1 across all of the transcripts, which means that you're gonna have anywhere from 40 to 46 answers. And those answers, each answer has a bullet point to it, right? So when you're taking notes in the margins, or when you're taking notes in another piece of paper and you go back later, it might be difficult to say, oh, those notes go with this passage, right? So just make sure that you have a way to align those. One of the things that we talked about in our little coding practice session was to maybe number them right. So like, let's say you have question number 1 and then there's 20 answers. Maybe going through and numbering those 20 answers 1 through 20. So then when you take notes, you can put 1 and then take a bunch of notes, right? And then 2 and take a bunch of other notes. And then you know that the notes under the number 1 go to answer number 1, and that the notes under number 2 go to answer number 2. And that seems pretty simple, but if you think about it, we have so much to code that at the end, if you're not really keeping track of which notes go to which answers, it's going to be kind of a disaster to find. If someone says, oh my gosh, that code is amazing, that code is so cool, where did you find that? And you have it in your notes, but you can't, but it's hard to match up which passage it goes to, then you won't be able to say, I found it in this answer in this question. Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of different ways to do that. I like the numbered way because I like numbers, but any way you can find to match up the codes and the answers and the notes. Yeah. And then the last point that I have here is about memo writing. This was something that I had no idea. I know Karen was talking about writing memos, and I had to kind of stop her at one point and be like, wait. I've, done my own individual research on coding. I've been trying to stay informed about coding, and memo writing is not something I've come across at all. So I asked her what it was. And she told me it's basically like a journal entry, right? So if you code, let's say that you are coding for an hour and you get through, I don't know, 7 answers, let's say. At the end of that hour, when you're done coding, maybe you go and you write a memo, and that'll look like you saying, it's March 15th, and today I coded for 1 hour. I coded 7 answers to this question, and then just saying, while I was coding, I realized this theme kept coming up, or when I was coding this answer in particular, I really kept thinking about how it connected to that answer. So it's basically just almost like a diary entry for coding. So after you code, you'll just write the memo stating what day it is, how long you coded for, what question you coded for, and then just commenting on your thought process. And that will be very important to keep those. Just again, if we have to kind of think about the fact that we're going to be coding these things multiple times. So if I code something, let's say that I finish coding question number 7, that question number 7 is going to get recoded a couple times, and it's going to get recoded in group settings. So if I finish coding question number 7, and then, I don't know, a month later, we're doing a group coding of question number 7, and again, someone says, whoa, that code is really cool. How did you get to that? Maybe I don't remember. Maybe I just can't remember at all. I remember the code and I remember the answer, but I don't remember how my thought process got me to that code. That can be a good time for you to pull up the memo and say, oh, look, I wrote that during that coding session, I was thinking about, institutional racism was the code, and this is how I got to it. I was thinking about this. It can also help if you're coding in a lot of sessions, which might happen just because we have a lot of answers. So if it takes you 4 sessions to code one of the questions, it might help to keep memos because, if there's 4 days, 7 days, even 2 weeks between your coding sessions, you might come back to it and kind of forget where you left off. So it might be helpful to be able to read your previous memo and say, okay, these were the themes I was thinking about. This was my line of thought. So then you can jump right into it in that same line of thought. I hope these helped. If there's any more pointers or anything like that, I know a couple people have already coded when there were interviews to code the last interview process with the ECF project. So if there's any more pointers that people found really helpful in coding, if there's anything that people have read about coding that I didn't talk about, please let me know. One, for my own benefit, so then I can also apply them, and then also so that we can either write them out to everybody or just make another video with more pointers.